In 1985, my parents escaped Vietnam with my three younger siblings. 1985 was a year that I would never ever forget in my entire life.
You're listening to the podcast Stories of the Vietnamese Boat People. Hi, I'm Tracy Nguyen Meng, and welcome back. I wanted to let you know before we start the show, we're holding an open call for submissions for the third annual May Vic Story Slam. This is our signature event where we encourage you in the community to share your personal stories in whatever creative format you'd like. Visit www.vietnameseboatpeople.org/storyslam for more details. Welcome back to Season 5, Lost and Found. In the last episode, I shared the story of Lee Tran, who wrote a memoir that helped her come to terms with her past and find forgiveness and understanding in a complicated relationship with her father. But in life, we don't always get those second chances. What would you do differently if you thought the words you last exchanged with someone you love would become the very last?
I was born in 1966 at a town named Quang Duc. We have 6 brothers and 4 sisters. I am the third daughter, and I'm number 6 in the family.
Jolie Phuong Hoang is a math professor living in Ontario, Canada. She escaped Vietnam by boat in 1983 with 5 of her siblings, and in 1985, the rest of her family attempted to escape.
Father was from Huế. My mother was from Phan Thiết, Mũi Né, and they met in Đà Lạt. They met in Đà Lạt when my father was in military school and my mother was a nurse. And they got married, and then they moved to Huế to start their family.
Jolie's father attended military school and studied to be an architect.
Then they start moving to Quang Duc when my father got a contract to build roads, build houses. Because at that time, the South Vietnamese government, I think in relation with the American, I believe. So the American gave my father a contract to build roads, houses, military barrack, hospital at a town named Quang Duc. So in Quang Duc, my father built a pharmacy for my mom, and she works as a nurse, and then she sells the medication at the same time. My parents dissolved the business and moved to Đà Lạt, built another business, and they had a permanent home there near Linh Sơn Temple. I don't remember very much the time that I lived in Quang Duc, but what I remember the most is the time when we, in 1975, when we had to leave Đà Lạt, when the communists took over the city of Đà Lạt. So we all went into my father's Jeep, and he drove us down to Phan Rang Trung Khánh Temple. And my granduncle was the chief monk for that temple at the time. We had to leave our home in the middle of the night. And then I remember there was gunfight, and a lot of people was moving away from Đà Lạt and running away from their home at that time. And I recall that when my father drove the Jeep down the mountain, it was very scary with a lot of people around us. A lot of luggage was throwing all over the road, and there's people injured, dying, and we couldn't do anything to help them. And that's how I remember. And when we reached the temple, we hid in the temple. We stayed there for like about a month. I think a little bit more than a month. And when the communists took over Phan Rang, I recall that when we heard the gunfight, we ran into a cave that my granduncle, he actually built that cave into the stone. So he got a secret passage from his room, And when we hit that, we heard like the stone cracking, bullet like flying above our head. Life after 1975 was hard because my father worked for the Americans, and our family was listed under like tiểu tư xã. So it's more like we have some relationship with the South Vietnamese government.
Jolie's family businesses were shut down and their homes were confiscated.
I recall that the communist government, the soldier, the official came to our house and they confiscate whatever we had, like the telephone, the television, the fridge. So it's more like they confiscate our wealth. So they try to look for gold, they try to look for medication, but my father and my mother managed to hide some gold to some medications. It's actually quite hard for my mom. After they took away the pharmacy, the people around Dai Mac still wanted my mom to be a nurse.
And Jolie's mother, an educated nurse and pharmacist, had to pursue her practice illegally.
My mom could take a bus from our house in Dalat, and she took the bus to Dai Mac. And I recall that she said that she just rented a little corner where she had a chair. People knew that she was there. So they came. At that time, it was black market. So I know that my mom hid medication, and if she got certain medication that she could give to the patient and had to do the work undercover, it's all in secret. My father actually used that gold to buy 3 seats on a boat for my 3 oldest brothers to escape Vietnam in 1980. And it turned out to be a scam. So they saw the boat, they met with the people who organized the escape. But then when it came to time to escape, when my 3 brothers went to the spot, all they heard was just people yelling that police. They had to run, and it turned out that there's no boat, nothing at all. That they just took the money. I know that my parents was upset and depressed. Not long after that, my father was away from home quite a bit. He decided to build the boat for the family to escape. So he went all the way to Cà Mau. He took my oldest brother out to quit school around grade 10 and then help him with the boat business. So after they finished building the boat, they transport goods from Cà Mau to Vũng Tàu, I think from Cần Thơ to Vũng Tàu, and then back and forth. Like sometimes they transport nước mắm, some like the fish sauce, in the way that they make it as a pretense business.
The Mekong River is the lifeblood of Southeast Asia. Within the river is the Mekong Delta, which lies in southern Vietnam, west of Saigon, and home to floating markets.
If you found the right person and got the permit, the government allowed the people to build boat to have a business along the Mekong River.
He must have had to hide, right, that he was building a boat, because I think
So the boat my father built was actually the river boat. It's not the boat that actually run in the ocean, because they would investigate if you actually build a boat to run in the ocean. Every time that he transport a goods along the Mekong River, he had to go through like the checkpoints. So they make a lot of checkpoints, and every time every boat merchant, they have to move through the checkpoints, they have to pay a fee. Like the communist official kept asking questions, what do you do with the boat or anything like that. My father would have to bribe them. So around that time, all of us, I think we have to bear a burden of keeping a family secret.
Were you and your siblings in school at that time?
We were in school. we probably would not be able to get to university because of our family history. In Vietnamese, they call is lý lịch xấu. That means we have a bad names on our family history. So I recall that my older brother passed the test to attend University of Economic in Saigon, but in order for him to attend, my father had to bribe the official.
It took her father a year to build the boat and another 2 years to operate the business of transporting products up and down the river. During that time, he was also recruiting other passengers for the escape, collecting and saving the money to pay for the expenses that would be required. In 1983, her father decided it was time to leave.
So it's supposed to be for the entire family to escape. But at the end, at the very last minute, I recall that when we were at Saigon at a hotel, my dad called us into a room, and then he started telling us that only 6 siblings would flee Vietnam at that time, along with my sister-in-law, my oldest brother's fiancée.
Jolie was 17 years old when she left with her 5 older siblings. Her 1 older sister stayed behind with her husband and younger children, and her 3 younger siblings, 2 brothers and the youngest sister, remained with her parents. Jolie felt especially guilty leaving her baby sister. Lang Phuong was only 7 years old.
Me, myself, and my youngest sister was inseparable. I am 10 years older than my youngest sister. So when she was born, we all brothers and sisters, we took turn taking care of Lang Phuong because she was the youngest in the family. And when she was a toddler, she clung on to me. So that evening, I recall that we were cuddling each other, and I told Lang Phuong that we would see each other again, and Lang Phuong understood that I would leave first on the boat, and she would stay back with my mom and my dad.
But that would be the last time she saw Lang Phuong again.
The people who paid a fee to escape at that time supposed to be around 30 as the max. The passenger list, I think it's only 29 or 30. But what happened was when the boat docked at certain point, then along that Mekong River, I know at Bà Rịa, Vũng Tàu, then the village that we stayed the night before we got transferred to the big boat, then people in that village, they knew. So they waited at the spot. It turned out to be 66 people on that boat, and more than half of those people that we don't even know them.
They didn't want to fight the people off the boat because they were afraid to cause a big commotion that would attract attention.
I recall that a lot of people still wanted to get on the boat, but my brothers started a boat when he counted that all of us was there. When the boat was too heavy, he just had to drive the boat away.
The siblings did not take many things with them, just an extra set of clothes, some gold that was sewn in their clothing, and some cash. Jolie remembers the knife that her father had given her for protection.
The night before, my dad, he all gave us a fake name and kind of prep us for the trip. Like lots of monies at that time, Vietnamese currency, in case that we got caught, that we can use the money to bribe the official or to. But I remember the most is the knife. I have to learn how to use it.
They survived 9 days at sea.
I was very sick. The seasick completely knocked me out. Our trip, if I compare to others, I would say that it's peaceful. The engine broke down a few times, but my brother knew how to fix the engine, and we met the Japanese boat, and they gave us fuel, and they gave us milk, water, fresh water.
They first arrived at the Singapore refugee camp, but were denied, as the camp was at full capacity. They were directed to sail to Indonesia, to the Galang refugee camp. When they arrived, their journey to the west did not come immediately after. Instead, they ended up living at the refugee camp for 14 months.
The people who stayed in Galang 1 did not get accepted by any delegation because there's 7 of us all together, so too many of us. So we got denied. We were not at the age where we could all work. And 7 of us all together would be very hard.
Around that time, Jolie and her siblings had already been denied by Canada, Australia, and the United States of America. Her father wrote to a pastor in Indonesia, inquiring about a private sponsorship for the group of children. That pastor then sent a letter to John Smith.
We got a postcard and a letter from a man named John Smith. So he was the founder of the Mountain Fund to help the Vietnamese, the boat people. So we received the letters, and he told us that he would sponsor us to Canada.
The Mountain Fund to help save the boat people was founded in 1979 by John Smith, a Christian politician in Hamilton, Ontario. He and his wife Judy started to raise funds for the refugees after seeing the horrific situations in the media. Supported by local citizens, the Mountain Fund sponsored hundreds of Vietnamese refugees in the 1980s into Canada.
When we were at the airport, Mr. Smith was there to greet us and himself and a few other members of the charity. When I stepped my foot in Canada, I knew that my freedom was complete. The year at the camp, we didn't receive a lot of letters from my parents, and my parents didn't say a lot about what's happened to them in Vietnam. The remaining families member went through a hard time. They questioned my parents to why the 6 children escaped Vietnam. So they gave my parents a hard time. They investigate them.
Her parents were getting questioned, having to pay off officials every time. This had become a routine, and they thought the only way out was to leave the city of Đài Lạt.
And at that time, in Vietnamese, it's called, the communist terminology would call hộ khẩu. Okay, so you have to have a permit in order to move to a certain place to live. So my parents couldn't stand that, so they went to Saigon, but they don't have a permit to live. In 1985, my parents escaped Vietnam with my 3 younger siblings. 1985 was a year that I would never ever forget in my entire life. And that month in June, the phone rings, and it was raining really hard on that day for some reason. The thunder and everything, and we couldn't hear the phone. And then we realized that the phone was ringing, and my older sister picked up the phone. And when she picked up the phone, I just saw her drop the phone, and then she cried. She cried really loud. They escaped, capsized, and my youngest sister drowned. Her body was never found, and my father died while rescuing her. And somehow his body was recovered and put on the policeman boat, and they all got transferred to Cô Sơn Island. And my father's body was buried in the sand on the beach of Cô Sơn Island. And my mom and my 2 younger brothers was imprisoned in Cô Sơn Island for like 3 months before they got released.
Jolie lost both her father and her baby sister. Lang Phuong was only 9 years old.
So I lost my younger sister, lost my father, and our lives, in fact, completely changed since. I never felt that I was the same again. I had to say that I threw myself into studies, because if I study hard and I fall asleep, then I don't remember. We knew that there's nothing we could do. We have to bury our grief and move on with our lives. And I think we focus. I think it shaped my life focus, I believe. And I recall what my parents and my father expect of us. I knew that he always wanted us to have a good education, and the love that he gave to us was actually immense. That we felt it. My parents, they really love us. They taught us live our life morally, and the way they conduct their lives really inspire us and shape our strength, because they went through all kinds of troubles. They navigate the big family through the war, and in the end, his life was taken away when the dream was about to come true for him, is to reunite the family. So it was really hard for us.
And Jolie, can I ask you, like, when you guys were reunited, what was your relationship with your mom like at that point?
So my mom was, I think my mom was very lonely, depressed, I think, at that time. Didn't say a lot. She was quite quiet. Yeah, we love her. We took care of her. She took care of us. I think in our families, there's always that quiet love. We care for each other, and we kind of give us each other space to grieve. For me, I'm more verbal. I ask a lot of questions. So I tend to ask my mom lots of questions. And I knew that those questions upset her. And my brothers and my sister kept telling me that, Julie, let it go. You have to let go. Deep down in our culture, whatever happened, we tend to blame on this person, that person. If we feel guilty, I think that guilt is more like we didn't do enough. If I could be brave enough at the time, the mandate that you escape Vietnam, yes, I will, but I want to take my younger sister with me. Like, I would say, I cannot go without her. So please let me take her with me. So the guilt that I had at that time, I did not speak up. I wish that I knew that my father planned another escape. I wish that I knew that I would just tell him, just stay in Vietnam. Don't do anything. Just whatever suffer that you just bear it until you come over on the plane. Because we already sent the sponsorship paper to my parents, and the remainder member of the families in Vietnam was all the sponsorship paper. My father couldn't submit that paper to the government because he was investigated at that time. I kept asking my mom a lot of questions, and at the time I probably make her upset. Not until I was a bit older that I realized that I shouldn't be asking those questions. I wish I knew more. I wish I could comfort my mom a lot more in a way that she would want to be comforted. So those are the guilt that I felt, that left behind, like in me. I took that grief into my marriage, into my adult, into years and years later. Like, to be very honest with you, it was inside me for so long. If I talk about this earlier, I would cry. But now, I knew why I didn't cry anymore, because I actually wrote them all down.
In 2019, Jolie published her first book, Anchorless, a story written in her father's voice.
My mom passed away in 2010, and I didn't sit down and write about my mom, my dad, until 2013, because in 2010, my mom could tell me a lot about what's going on and what's happened. In 2010, when I visited her in the hospital, when I took care of her, before she passed away, she told me a lot. And I became a parent myself. So in 2013, I got 3 daughters. So I sat down and I wrote about it. And I decided to use the voice of my father's ghost. I wanted to put a voice into him, like it was silent after he died. And then I want to explain the reason why my mom was such a lonely person so many years after my father passed away. So my brothers went back to Vietnam. 2 brothers took a trip to Vietnam, exhumed my father's remains, and then cremated and brought the ash to California and buried with my mom.
While they were able to move their father's remains closer to the family 30 years later, the body of Lang Phuong, her youngest sister, was lost at sea. In 2021, Jolie published a follow-up to her book Anchorless, but this time she wanted to expand the narrative. Her book, 3 Funerals for My Father, is a heart-wrenching memoir told in 3 distinct voices: her father's, her younger self, and herself as an adult, returning to Vietnam to visit her father's grave.
In writing everything down on paper, reserved all that for my children to read and to educate them about the histories of the family, I feel like I can draw the positive out from it. We can find the positive element in tragedy.
And when I read 3 Funerals for My Father, Jolie's story brought me to tears. I remembered when my mother first told me about her youngest sister, Yi To. She had also died trying to escape Vietnam with her 4-year-old son and her 6-year-old daughter. All 3 died at sea, and their bodies were never found. According to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, it was estimated that between 200,000 to 400,000 Vietnamese boat people may have perished at sea, but there are no clear statistics. Some estimates have gone as high as 600,000 people.
Like I thought about how I get to know Vietnamese people podcast. So I got to know you right now is because I could let all of that feelings out on paper. I told the story. Those people who escaped Vietnam and died in the ocean, their story was never heard by anyone. Then I just hope my family story is just one of those unheard voices.
I would like to join Jolie in dedicating this episode and the mission of our podcast to all the loved ones we've lost. May their souls continue to drift above us and remind us of how precious life is, and the memories of them never be forgotten. For more details on this episode, and to connect with Jolie directly, follow our Instagram or Facebook page at Vietnamese Boat People, and look for details under episode 37. I'm Tracy Nguyen Mang, and thank you for helping us preserve history. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, and please take a moment to rate us and provide us feedback. And if you have a story to share, contact us at stories@vietnameseboatpeople.org.